Hello, I am going to record a little bit more from the University of Metaphysics. Um, I'm continuing on with their studies, and we are entering Gemini season. So I thought Gemini energy is air sign. It's about thinking, learning. Um, of course, studying philosophy and metaphysics and all that stuff is going to be Sagittarius, but third house is connected to the ninth house, so that's that tether quartz. There's a little bit of Sagittarius energy in there, so every Gemini has a Sagittarian within. But Gemini is also ruled by Mercury, which is about communication and thought and speaking and all that stuff too. So let's do it. So also this little section is an introduction basically to the master's degree material for the program. So it's an overview, just like Gemini. Gemini isn't going so deep into the depths, it's just a surface. And it's a good section here because it goes over some of the big names in the field of metaphysics and how it was introduced to become more and more mainstream and accepted by culture, which is very interesting. And that's what Gemini is about, is being inquisitive and learning and just dabbling in a little bit of everything. So let's take a look. All right. I think I have it up here. It should be showing. Have a little bit of my tea. I'm having lemon, my favorite tea, lemon echinacea tea. Open up the throat. All right, ready? Let's go. All right, so I'm going to see if this is recording on the right side. All right, well, good. All right, thanks for watching. I hope you're all doing very well and enjoying this shift in energy. It's going to make you probably want to just dabble in some things that you put aside in different projects and stuff. Just get busy and thinking about things and learning things and all that. So embrace that. If you want to be on that monad cycle for Gemini season, there was a parade that I wanted to go to. Well, not a parade, it was a festival, but I missed it. I was going to go by myself. I was like, that's real Gemini. Just go out there also and just do stuff, meet people, which is not my thing. Very antisocial. Just kidding. I'm very private, but I'm going to do that because this is what the living monad is about, like embodying the energy of the time rather than just our programming or preconditioning. Sorry, I'm messing with my hair. Just going to read. All right. Part 1, the metaphysical psychology of consciousness. We live today in a world that is rapidly awakening to an exciting yet age-old concept of the mind, and thus a new way of living. The validity of what the mystics and metaphysicians have spoken of for centuries is slowly but surely being proven. Nothing can affect human life as profoundly as this new understanding of consciousness, which can not only keep pace with the rapid advancements of outer technology, but potentially accelerate far beyond it. These teachings can accelerate us and advance us in society far beyond all the cool gadgets and technology that's coming out right now. So it's like, imagine if Elon Musk was spiritual, was conscious. We'd be out of this world for sure. Actually, we'd be more in ourselves and able to manifest more than going to the outer worlds or planets of Mars. Mars energy also, if you study, sorry, I'm going to keep reading Martin Kinney. Martin Kinney has a great presentation on his interpretation of the levels of the outer worlds and the outer planes and flat earth or what have you, but more from a planned out perspective. He does syncretism, which is Santo Spinachi's method of cross-referencing the resources from all these different cultures, just like when you take the teachings from different religions and you get the Theosophical Society, like Annie Besant, Madame Blavatsky, which this section also talks about a little bit. You're looking at the similarities within all these cultures to find out the one truth, the truth between it. So syncretism looks for overlapping things to find out what the uniting truth is between all of them. And he does this with all the different cultures, talking about the lands and the outer worlds, and what we talk about is the planets and things like that, and how he maps out the distance of those planes. And Mars is essentially an outer realm which is the lands further out, which is further away from consciousness, which if you think about ourselves too, the more we go in towards Eden, the Garden of Eden, which he shows is the very inner planets, when we evolve consciously inward. But when you go outward, you're reaching those outer planets, which are less conscious, less aware. Those worlds would become less naturey. They're not going to have less trees and foliage. They'll be in air and water and breathable space. You're going to have a surface and an environment that's like Mars, where it's very hot, where it's very dry, where it's very void of life, and that consciousness that creates livable space. But that's where certain people that are in that tech field of Elon Musk, nothing against him, but that's where Martin Kinney says those people of that influence want to go out and down in consciousness rather than in and up with our inner consciousness and powers. They want people to go into that robotic, cold, separated, the kind of dystopian and those scary worlds, the big what am I trying to say? The apocalyptic worlds that are in the movies that are being constantly shown to us to program us towards that outcome. And he says it's no surprise that they want to go to Mars instead of healing the earth and expanding here. But back to this, it says that nothing can affect human life as profoundly as this new understanding of consciousness, which can not only keep pace with the rapid advancements of our outer technology, but potentially accelerate far beyond it. Metaphysics, considered for a long period of time as only vague, speculative philosophy, is coming of age in a new age of mind. The answers that metaphysics has given to this age-old question, to the age-old questions of who am I, what am I, where have I been, and where am I going, are increasingly being accepted as reality. As science catches up with the truth that metaphysicians have intuitively discovered and presented in the past, the answers to the questions regarding the relationship between man, woman, mind, and the universe are making more sense and finding increasing acceptance. Consider that until the middle 1960s, the opinions of metaphysicians were shunned by most psychologists and psychiatrists. However, with a stepped-up pace in parapsychology, the effects of meditation, experiments in biofeedback, mass exposure to Kirlian photography, and countless mind expansion and awareness programs nationwide, a new psychology of consciousness is emerging. Contributing to this is a new awareness on the part of an increasing number of medical physicians. Most importantly, as metaphysical principles are being proven, philosophical discussions of metaphysical knowledge need no longer be left to an esoteric few. So we're making this widely known. All right. Rather, it is becoming evident that metaphysical knowledge has a real-life role to play in the daily mental life of all human beings. The so-called mystical can become the most practical foundation upon which to interact with life and with others on a daily basis. This next section right here looks like it's covered up by this, but it's actually from this paragraph here, so we'll just read it from there to get the whole thing. One can receive no greater gift in life than the gift of metaphysical knowledge. As Socrates notably said, the unexamined life is not worth living. In metaphysics today, it can be said, the examined life is far more worth living. And that's what we're learning about with Alice Bailey books, is the difference. We talk about consciousness in terms of the vegetable kingdom and then the animal kingdom, the mineral kingdom, then the vegetable kingdom, and then the animal kingdom, and then the human kingdom. What separates us from the kingdom below us is our capacity to be self-aware, to analyze ourselves, to think, to cognize, and to change our habits and our programming and behaviors so that we're not just reactive to our environment and living off of impulse. We are able to use those senses that animals do. So we have that, we are sentient beings, but we also add a level of sentience. To that sentience, we add consciousness. conscious self-awareness, okay? And that's what sets us apart if we activate and live through that. Once in this new world of mind, Sigmund Freud, while appreciated for his efforts, is now being set aside. The analytical psychology of the late Carl Jung has gained great popularity. And what has brought on this shift? Jung explored the teachings of mystics and metaphysicians who existed throughout the ages in an attempt to penetrate the deepest layers of the human mind. With his tremendous contribution to academic psychology, Jung is most certainly the greatest psychologist of the 20th century. This is no small measure because he drew into psychology the important teachings of metaphysics. At one time, he was quoted as saying, "What the East, where metaphysics has long existed as a religious mind, philosophy, psychology, what the East knows about the human mind is at least 2,000 years ahead of Western psychology." I'll read that again. What the East knows about the human mind is at least 2,000 years ahead of Western psychology. In Jung's statement, we find a great truth. If one truly studies metaphysics to its fullest, it can be seen that most of the basic ideas presented in metaphysics have an Eastern origin. This does not mean that the ancient Egyptian and Greek metaphysicians did not also add to or complement Eastern metaphysics, as of course did the greatest metaphysician of them all, Jesus. Yet so many of today's metaphysically minded people would not be able to understand the true meaning of Christ's teachings had they not been cross-referenced with the teachings of Eastern mystics. Again, that's the practice of syncretism that helps us to understand things on a deeper level by comparing it and understanding truths that have been taught and passed on through the ages. That's what these esoteric teachings are, the secret teachings of all ages, going back to not reinvent the wheel and actually syncretizing and syncretizing, yes, all the information to find out those truths that cannot be, that have been morphed over the ages and that cannot be disproven. So these have been proven. That's why it's saying metaphysics is being validated in a way that it was in the past considered vague and superstitious or not credible. But syncretism helps us to do that. So I think, yes, cross-reference with the teachings of Eastern mystics. Next section, metaphysics, a historical perspective. Let us take a look at some of the contributors who have paved the way for today's current thinking and knowledge in the area of metaphysics. Madame Blavatsky. The psychology of new consciousness, based on metaphysics, probably had its strongest beginnings in the United States with the Theosophy movement of Madame Blavatsky. Her two outstanding books, The Secret Doctrine and Isis Unveiled, laid tremendous groundwork for today's metaphysical thinkers, as many subsequent teachers and writers drew from her works. The Secret Doctrine has 2 volumes, they're very thick books. I have read through some of both of them. It's very, very dense. It just blows my mind to think of how much information was in this one woman and a lot of what she did. She actually went on a mission. She was born here. She went to the East, and in the culture over there, they would not teach a woman how, they wouldn't teach the ancient teachings and the wisdom of the sages to a woman. So she actually went undercover as a male and covered undercover so that she could learn from this group. And her story is actually pretty interesting. She came from privilege over here, or I don't know if she was actually from the United States. But yeah, Madame Blavatsky, so she actually went over there to study Eastern culture and learn from the actual, the Brotherhood is what is it that I can't think of the name, but there's a really cool story behind that. But yeah, so she did that so that she could learn from them. And of course, eventually he found out that she was a woman, but she actually became very, very knowledgeable and very, very close and learned about the Eastern teachings, and then brought so much forth from everything that she learned how to do, channeling and all of those things. I think I could think of the name. But yeah, look it up, Madame Blavatsky's story. And so The Secret Doctrine, yes, it's a very dense book, but if you just kind of just look over the letters, probably you're just going to expand your brain cells just doing that. Mary Baker Eddy, but Alice Bailey's work is a lot more digestible to understand as a basis. Mary Baker Eddy. Then came Mary Baker Eddy, a woman who was ill a great deal of her life. She discovered the power of the mind and subsequent healing for herself through a hypnotist named Parkes Quimby. Later, however, she would attack hypnotism. It is believed she very likely felt it would be unpopular with the people of her day to present religious suggestive therapeutics under the label of hypnotism. So once again, she saw the power of the healing ability of the mind, which we know is the placebo effect. The mind can heal. So she was able to do this through hypnotism, but then later felt that it would be unpopular with the religious groups that she was with. So she then renounced hypnotism. So you have to think about the lesson there as well. If you know that there's the truth there, but then we are unable to do something that is as powerful as heal ourselves through the power of the mind. The mind is a gift from God. Therefore, it should be something that, if it does good, then we should be able to explore it. Anyways, so it wasn't until she was 65 years old that Mary Baker Eddy gave her first Christian Science lecture. To those of us who have studied all major teachings of the mind, worldwide and throughout history, Syncretism, what is known today as Christian Science can best be described as Christianized Eastern metaphysics. Good to know. Her interpretation of Christ's teachings was definitely along the lines of Eastern metaphysical thinking. Whether she had studied metaphysics, intuitively arrived at metaphysical truths, or a combination of the two, one can only speculate. Indeed, the metaphysical pantheism of Mary Baker Eddy is obvious. Christian Science became the first major metaphysical movement with a practical application, with major emphasis on health, of course, but also with a strong emphasis on prosperity and improving the quality of daily living. Through Christian Science as a vehicle, the success of metaphysics spread, and others took up the banner of what later became known as truth teachings or New Thought. Very cool. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. The contributions of two wonderful and inspiring souls in the persons of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore were notable in that they first healed themselves and then went on to share with their fellow human beings what again can only be described as Christianized Eastern metaphysics in the marvelous movement that became known as unity. Ernest Holmes. How much of an effect the success of the Christian Science and unity movements had on a man in Los Angeles named Ernest Holmes can only be speculated. Whatever the motivation, Holmes started the Church of Religious Science, a metaphysical teaching, again, Eastern in base. While involving the teachings of Christ, Holmes did so with less emphasis than either Christian Science or unity. He made the right decision because something happened in Los Angeles that had not been seen to any great extent in the other aforementioned movements. What occurred was that with less emphasis on the Christian approach, sprinklings of people with Jewish and other backgrounds were attracted to the teachings. The positive accomplishment by Holmes made it possible to bring metaphysics to people who did not have a Christian upbringing. Because it's interesting because New Thought and unity we're all about uniting, and what this is all about is coming into at-one-ment, Christ consciousness, unity consciousness, the unity and the likeness of all cultures, of all people, of all persons. But because they had that basis, it was still divisive, and others were hesitant to join it. So Ernest Holmes took it to the level of softening that association, but keeping it towards the Eastern wisdom or the ancient teachings, and then other people of different backgrounds, Jewish and otherwise, were able to actually benefit and learn from the work as well, which was a huge thing starting in Los Angeles. What occurred was that with the teachings of Blavatsky, Eddy, and Holmes continued for years, attracting those who were ready for metaphysics, but not really stepping into the new arena of mass media communications. Then the Beatles. Then the phenomenon happened, the Beatles. This talented group of young men with worldwide influence over the young, seeking to go beyond drugs, turned to meditation. The Maharishi, a relative unknown at that time, became their teacher, and through his identification with them, he himself became world-renowned. Most important, through the mass media exposure during that period, meditation became a daily practice in the lives of so many people. A new phenomenon was emerging. The public in mass was being exposed to metaphysics. The mind-body relationship of Western psychology became the mind-body-spirit or metaphysical relationship. Self-help, Jose Silva. The social atmosphere was now set for people like Jose Silva to promote his Silva mind control on a large scale. Here, under the self-help label, people were exposed to a combination of self-hypnosis, meditation, and psychic sensitivity techniques. The self-help and awareness labels created a comfortable doorway to metaphysics for the more skeptical, conservative souls among us. Werner Erhard. He saw the handwriting on the wall and realized that the self-help/awareness label was the way to reach people, and thus EST and other similar movements appeared on the scene. Reverend Ike. At the same time, Black consciousness came alive to the basics of metaphysical consciousness through the personage of Reverend Ike. Probably more than any other teacher mentioned here, Reverend Ike was criticized because of his emphasis on how metaphysics could be used to create prosperity. I'll pause there again because there's nothing wrong with using, of course, certain people who came into this knowledge and sectioned it off or protected it from the masses. Of course, their take on it was to create massive amounts of wealth, and then as an offshoot of that, massive amounts of control and servitude in these classes and hierarchies and things like that to feel almighty or more powerful, as if these capabilities weren't unanimous for all of us, right? So that became stigmatized later for people who wanted to manifest wealth or prosperity. Of course, also in the Christian teachings, there was a distortion, a major money distortion created in people that made them feel like to have wealth was something to be, to look down upon it. So then people found themselves in conflict if they were Christian and wealthy. And now today you even have those evangelists who secretly are siphoning money from the church and living large and everything, and then they find out and then they just get massively shamed by these people because they feel like you're not supposed to have things. We need to balance out that dynamic, and then understanding also that as much as we can manifest prosperity and abundance. Prosperity is not just money either, so, but how it pans out is most people look for money first, right? We want to manifest the money. But really, if we manifest what is specifically for us, namely our birth chart, what we are meant to do, what we're meant to bring to the world, our unique service, then you become a magnet for abundance and prosperity, and you become a flowing vortex, as we know the what's it called, the Taurus field. That energy, it naturally produces current attracts currency, so that all flows, right? When we have different when we're double-minded about things like that, when we have teachings as a basis that teach us that we need to be meek and humble and servile, then it's in direct conflict, and that energy cannot move in the flow of a field that creates what you want to manifest. So it's a lot better to understand more who we are and our unique purpose, do what is fulfilling, and then naturally manifest it. The end goal isn't the money or the fiat currency. The end goal is the current, the energy, so that we can flow into our world that which we need to live more life. And it could just be that you manifest a huge property where you can have some communal living and have people live in this new earth type of way, and that's abundance and prosperity for you. So you might just jump 10 steps ahead of just manifesting $1 million. You might just manifest in a much more creative way that's very personal to you and your unique mission. Now this next section where it says my methods, again, if you're not familiar, this is the coursework for Dr. Masters program, University of Metaphysics. He's the one that created the program and the university. So this is his little section. Meanwhile, contributing in my own way, I was saturating newspapers in the Los Angeles area with large display advertising, continually for a period of 4 years, presenting what I called meditation dynamics. This combination, meditation, self-hypnosis, self-help approach to life, as its goal, consciousness of metaphysical principles of the mind. This combination, meditation, self-hypnosis, and self-help approach to life, has as its goal consciousness of metaphysical principles of the mind. I mention this here because all my activity during that time was aimed at people in Los Angeles, California, and not nationally in any direct way. Those who live in another part of the country or outside the United States may not be aware that Los Angeles is where most movements and or ideas generally get started. If people are influenced in Los Angeles, that influence will spread throughout the country. For this reason, my personal efforts were concentrated there. Many people, and it's interesting too, that that's where you have the mecca of the film industry. The film industry, and what we see, because you know that through metaphysical teachings, visualization, affirmation, whatever we repeat and whatever we visualize, it takes seed, and that seed germinates, and it then outpictures and manifests itself in our reality. So then we have the mecca of this dream world, or this imagination factory, this engine, Hollywood, in Los Angeles. So is that a coincidence that this idea generator, this concept generator, this mind framer is based in the place where they know that it spreads and it takes hold, it has a foothold, and it's something about Los Angeles that does that. For this reason, my personal efforts were concentrated there. So I'm going to counteract that and spread ideas of consciousness and awakening. Those kinds of messages can also come from Los Angeles. So it's not that Hollywood or the place is bad. It's just that it's been permitted to run rampant with a one-sided view that is interesting. Now people say this is society or our culture or what consumers want, but really they don't understand that it's actually being fed. So we're being fed the culture, the ideas, and then we're being told that that's what society wants and that's what society demands and that's what society is like today. But when you go around and you observe people and you listen, a lot of the younger generation too, and you listen to how they talk, they're even speaking with the same cadence. And there's like videos that pop up on YouTube and all the girls, and it sounds so funny. It's the Kardashian draw. Wait, are you telling me that if I wanted that, I'm so obsessed with Gucci bag? It's just so funny how like, and you hear when you're going out, I'm at Starbucks and the girls are just, I'm just like, oh, that's interesting. No judgment, just observation. No judgment, just observation. So moving on, continuing on. Society needs to create its own engine. Society needs to generate its own ideas and then tell the machine whether we like it or not. Just like we can thumbs up, thumbs down, and share our opinions so strongly on the internet with people who are just authentically creating or putting things out just as a regular Joe Schmo. Why don't we put a heavier criticism of the industry on what it's feeding us? Is it conducive to our success and our prosperity? More life, more happiness, more freedom. Many people studying with me during that period had never heard of metaphysics before we met, and yet today they are metaphysical teachers. We were so successful in this regard through the National Metaphysics Institute that a higher educational division was formed, the University of Metaphysics, to give doctoral degree recognition to graduates wishing to teach metaphysics. At this point, we shifted from large local advertising to more extensive national publicity. Additional metaphysicians. Those metaphysicians discussed above whose influence has been strongly felt in this field are fairly well known by the general public. Many who are not as renowned have also contributed to bringing greater metaphysical awareness to the public. Listed below are a few metaphysicians who stand out, each with his or her own unique contribution. Swami Vivekananda brought Jnana Yoga teachings in Vedanta form to this country around the beginning of the 19th century. No teacher I have ever read has taught more powerfully. Paramahansa Yogananda started the Self-Realization Fellowship in Los Angeles. His teachings reached many throughout the country via mail order studies. Manly Palmer Hall, probably wrote more books covering metaphysical subjects than any other author. Franklin Lower explored the power of prayer on plants and thus began the idea of people talking to their plants, opening a whole new level of psychic mind communications. Roy Eugene Davis, former disciple of Yogananda, he has written books on metaphysical subjects that the general public can readily assimilate. Marcus Bach, his books, magazine articles, and lectures have provided real insight into metaphysics and the metaphysical movement itself. Alice Bailey, her many books open the door to the deeper, more occult aspects of metaphysics. She picked up where Blavatsky and her main followers, Annie Besant and C.W. Leadbeater, led off. Ram Dass, formerly Dr. Richard Alpert, and one-time crony of Timothy Leary, he introduced a positive presentation of higher awareness to the young people that Leary, with his drug orientation, could not. Corinne Helene, though blind, she wrote volumes on metaphysical Bible interpretation, which at the time of this writing are not widely known, but may someday have a strong impact on the Christian church. Catherine Ponder, her self-help books have opened the door to metaphysics for many traditional Christian believers. The Cheneys of the Astara movement, their mail order lessons have reached many who are interested in the more esoteric side of metaphysics. H. Spencer Lewis, founder of the San Jose-based Rosicrucian Order, his teachings have probably reached more people by mail through the years than those of any other organization. Interesting that was a common way of spreading information back then, was the mail teachings, the little pamphlets, the little mailings used to go to all these different groups, and that's how they spread these teachings. So many come to mind that it would take a small book to give credit to all of those who have so richly contributed to the public's current receptivity to and awareness of metaphysics. Knowledge of the metaphysical movement is offered in this brief description so that you may better grasp and cross-reference the metaphysical psychology of consciousness that follows. So I'm going to end this video here, and I'm going to read a little bit of this first section. Again, it's the master's portion of Dr. Master's program with the University of Metaphysics, and it's so, this little section right here, I'm going to read not the whole thing, but a little portion of it. It's really good, and yeah, so I'm going to end this video right here, and I will be right back with another one. Sorry, my hair is so crazy. All right, thanks for watching. Take care.